Hi guys, Tish here from Black Sheep Finance. I hope you're having an awesome Tuesday. So today I'm going to do quite a complex question, so stay with me. It's something that I get asked a lot, which is I want to keep my existing house, make it into a rental property and buy something else to live in. Which is a common thing if you've bought your first home and it's a basic home, you want to get something nicer, but you think, oh, I also want to invest, so I'll keep that as an investment property. It seems like a good idea in principle. More often than not, it's never a good idea. I will show you through the reasons why, which has a lot to do with your own numbers. I'm using someone's actual numbers today. If you want me to go through your numbers, then send me a PM and I'm happy to do that as well. So there's lots of implications to understand. Ideally, you want to have the home you live in and then use the equity in that home to buy an investment property instead of the reverse. Today's question is, I don't want to live in this property, keep it as a rental and buy something else. So I've got numbers here. As you can see, I'm in my renovated bathroom and I've drawn on the wall. I like drawing on the wall, I like drawing. So stay with me here. If you don't understand all these concepts, I don't really have time to go through everything in great detail. Go back and watch the 5 essentials. Because there's a lot to go through and hopefully it's going to make sense. So here we go. Okay, so I only focus on the numbers that I'm sort of going to point to. I'm just going to clean my camera lens, it's dirty. Still not really focused. Okay, so we first have to start with the property. There we go, focused. So in this case study, this person's informed me that this is the house they currently live in, which the value is 360. Their existing loan on this property is 250. Now we have two ways of accessing equity in a property. Equity essentially is the difference. The value is 360. What's owing is 250. This is the debt. The difference here is what's called equity. I'm going to write that there. Equity. Equity is not free. It is something that I misunderstood when someone first walked me through this. I thought it was free. I didn't really understand it. Unfortunately, when we start talking about a lot of these complex terms, if you don't understand it properly, it might not be that you understand it. It just might not be that someone hasn't explained it properly. So just find someone who you can relate to and everything makes sense. So value 360, which this is the LVR here, 250 owing. The difference between this and this is 110,000. So you might be misled to think, oh, I've got 110,000 equity. Technically no, because you have to access that. So option 1, right, up here is if we sell. So if we sell, we can access the whole 110, but so when you sell, you get the 360, you pay off the loan, but then you've also got selling costs. Selling costs are roughly 2%, plus you've got marketing costs as well. So in this case, it's going to be approximately $10,000. You can get it cheaper, you might pay more. So you've net 100K. So if you sell it, you've got 100K. That's how you can access the most, right? If you want to keep this property and access the equity via a loan, you can only access up to a certain percentage. Generally, that's 90%. You can't access 100%. Banks will not let you lend 100% of their value. It's too risky to them. So 90% on this figure means we can access 74,000. Because we're borrowing over 80% and we're in the 90% LVR, you're going to pay lender's mortgage insurance. Again, refer to the previous video if you're not familiar with lender's mortgage insurance. This is a fee to the bank. Depending on which bank you choose, this figure will differ. In this case, I've used one of the major lenders here. You're going to be paying $6,800. Now you can borrow that on top in some cases, not in all cases. So you'll still have the 74,000 cash, essentially. It's not cash. It's called cash out. That's the term we use, banking term, when we speak with lenders, but it's not free. This is a loan still, so you have to make repayments on this. If you go above 90%, which isn't always possible when you're asking, if you purchase, you can go to 95. It's not always possible if you refinance or restructure. So this figure literally doubles. The fee here to access this equity would be $12,800 if you went to 95%. So not always attractive, okay? Keep that in mind. So, okay, we now know how much equity you can get if you keep the property, but how much money do you actually need to get into the next place? Because we're assuming here you're leveraging your current house to buy something else. You're not putting cash in, which means you've only got access to this much money. So in this particular case, this person who asked me for this question, they're considering max purchase price of $550. If you buy some for $550, it costs you more than that. You've got stamp duty. This is the actual stamp duty amount. You can find calculators online. You're going to pay a conveyancer to transfer things around, titles, etc. And then you've got transfers, so council rates, water rates, etc. You have to take over that. Again, I've explained this in previous videos. So the total cost is actually $588.55. Somehow you have to come up with this whole figure. This is why we lend, because you won't have 580 grand sitting in the bank. But you're not going to be able to access all of this because that's greater than the value of the property. So if we again look at the 90%, so we can only lend a percentage of the purchase price or value. So 90% means we can borrow $495. So what we then need is the gap between what we're getting from the bank and what the thing is actually costing. So the difference between the loan and the total cost is $85,855. So you can see here there's a bit of a difference. We can only get 74, we need 85. Now because everything is based on percentages, you might go, oh, that's roughly 11, 12 grand. I'll just buy a property 11, 12 grand cheaper. It doesn't work like that. Everything's based on percentages, okay? So again, because we're at 90%, you're going to pay lender's mortgage insurance. Lender's mortgage insurance is based on the loan amount, so the LVR, and how much you're borrowing. So over here, you only paid 6.8, but you're not borrowing that much. Over here, you're borrowing almost double. So lender's mortgage insurance in this case is going to be $10,000, just over $10,000. If again, you wanted to borrow more and you went up to 95%, it almost doubles. You're going to pay $22,500. If you go 95%, you can't always cap this amount. You can't add this to the loan up here. You can't always do that when you're at a higher ratio. So what all these numbers mean in summary is if you wanted to buy another house and keep this one, you have to really leverage your position. Now you're left with a shitload of debt, basically. So it's not ideal because you've only still got $250 owing this property, which is now a rental property. This equity, so now we're going to start, flip around. So when it comes to understanding how investments work and tax deductions, it's important that you get the right advice. I am not a licensed tax professional, so I can't tell you this. But in my experience, what I know to be true is that how a loan is deemed tax deductible is based on the purpose. The purpose, not the security. So if you take equity out against a property that's an investment property and you use that to buy an owner-occupied home, the purpose is for your home. The purpose isn't for the investment property. So deemed by purpose, I'm not an accountant, but it's not tax deductible, okay? So now you've essentially got 105% debt against your unoccupied home. Generally when you're investing, it's to get ahead. But what you've essentially done in this situation, now obviously some people might be going, oh, I've done that. Well, according to the tax office, if you have debt against an investment property for the purpose of unoccupied, it's not tax deductible. Just because you haven't gotten caught doesn't mean it's correct. So I'll just flip it around again. Okay, so going back to these numbers. So you think you're trying to get ahead, you've bought your dream home up here for $550, but now you've got $495 plus your 10, I should have written these figures down, plus the 75 plus 6, so I can't do that in my head, but basically, you've got a shitload of debt. Essentially, this figure here is what you're borrowing plus all the fees. So you're borrowing, where are we? 10, 6, let's just round it up. You're borrowing almost $600,000 for a property that's only worth $550. Not exactly a smart move. However, in the reverse, when you own your home and you take equity out for the purpose of buying an investment property, that is tax deductible. So what happens is you go, what's left here? So let's assume this property is worth $360 and you get rent of $350 per week. Because this is your only tax deductible debt, what's left secured against the investment property, you can't claim this. So all you're doing is claiming the interest on this. So the cost of this loan, if it's interest only, is about $220 per week. So you got rent of $350. So now the property is positive cash flow. So I'm going to talk about negative gearing in another video. But again, that's not ideal because sometimes people invest to save tax. So now you're actually paying more tax because you're drawing an income from this property. Yes, that extra income, the gap here, can help you pay for the loans over here. However, you're now going to get taxed on that income. The other thing that's important to understand when investing is your structure. Structure is very, very important. You have to see someone who actually knows how to structure these loans. Obviously, I'm going to have a go at banks here, but people who work in banks aren't licensed. They just work in a bank. They don't understand complex investment structures. They don't know how to advise on that. So the structure is how you own an asset and in what percentage. So in this particular case, it's a couple that have got together. They're now married. Previously, the house only belonged to the male. So I've got two people here. So it's 100% in this person's name and nothing in this person's name. So that's when you actually buy the property, how you register the title and the ownership. It's going to flip it around again. So when you're investing, you should invest with the purpose of investing. This scenario here, this is not investing. This is turning a property into a rental property. There's a difference between having a rental property and an investment property. An investment property means you're investing. You should be investing your money in something that's in the right area, that's got capital growth potential, and you should plan in advance if you want negative geared property or positive geared property based on your own tax position. And you can change that based on the ownership structure. So if one person earns more than the other person, don't buy it jointly. You buy in what's called tenants in common. Again, I'm not a tax person. I can't give advice, blah, blah, blah. But if it's 50-50, you get 50% of the deductions, which is the loan, 50% of the income, which is the rent. Obviously, there's other deductions, property management fees, etc., etc. But you can make the property cheaper to own on a weekly basis just by changing that ownership structure. So you need to sit down with somebody to better figure what the ideal structure is for you and your numbers. Because in some people's cases, you know, it's about your tax bracket as well. If someone's earning 50 grand, you know, that person's earning, say, 100 grand, again, non-advised, blah, blah, blah. General disclaimer, it would be better to put more ownership in the other person's name for all the deductions so we can try and bring them down into different tax brackets. So when you get into different tax bracket, that's when you make your savings. So that's more touching on negative gearing and other issues. So that's kind of the piece for this particular person. So if you're watching or watching later, feel free to take a photo just for your information. So happy to do other case studies. If you want me to workshop your current situation, I obviously won't name you, but I'm happy to give you the numbers as well. So it's not just about knowing these numbers, it's understanding how it works and how it impacts your current situation. So in summary, for this person, I would advise selling and then buying. If you buy, you're going to get yourself into a whole lot of personal debt, and your current property isn't set up properly for investment. And I don't think, personally, you're in a high capital growth potential area either. So it depends on your numbers. Everyone's different as to what the correct answer is. But generally, it's better to have an investment property that's actually a good investment property. So the only exception would be, for example, what I did is I bought property and lived in it, knowing it was going to become an investment property. So that became an investment property, so I took the equity out and bought another property, which then became my investment property. So that's kind of the only way where it's different if you're going to buy something else and leverage off of that. But you should always buy something with the intent for it to be an investment property, so you get the right property to hold on to. So hopefully that's been of use to you guys. If you've got any specific questions about this situation, post them below, or if you want me to do another case study on your numbers or something similar, then again, post below or PM me. Thanks guys, have a good night.